We're good.
This is the Sidekick Podcast.
Not weekly pool, but normally would
Still
be.
not weekly pull.
Coming to you
That's
weekly.
Okay. We're still coming at you weekly.
That's true.
What kind of comics are we zeroing in on today?
Fiction. We're sticking with fiction,
It's fiction.
but grounded in reality.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I know, I was like so neutered by this topic. No ghosts, no monsters.
Nothing supernatural.
Yeah.
Not the future. No sci-fi. No sci-fi that's 5 years from now. No sci-fi that's a year and a half from now.
Now,
Good.
today,
Now.
it could happen. It just happened to not happen.
Yes.
Yeah. So fictional, but realistic.
Yes.
Which, there's lots of stuff like this. People, think that comics are all ghosts, monsters, superheroes, etc. No.
No.
There are lots of tales of the mundane, as I say, but not
Yes.
as mundane, not as a derogatory term, but
No.
mundane just being real world, real people, real stuff,
Yeah.
not superheroes and laser blasts.
It's a medium.
Yeah,
It's a
exactly.
medium, not a genre.
Like
so
any
we're
other.
here
Yeah.
to talk about parts of the genre you might not know.
The eventual sidekick hoodies or something should say that on the back. It's a medium, not a genre.
Yeah,
Oh, that's a good idea.
I like that.
Make that shirt.
Little fun spin on the comics are for everybody, which
Yeah.
I'm still a fan of. But
Yeah, those are great.
Which actually follows through with that theme.
yeah,
Yeah.
because
yeah.
my mom doesn't really like superhero laser blast sci-fi horror adventures,
But that doesn't mean there's not a comic for your mom.
That means she won't like
Exactly.
slots.
Yeah.
which is why the book I want to talk about today I actually don't have here with me to talk about because I lended it to my mom. My mom is currently borrowing it to read it. I want my mom to read comic books because they're great.
Yep, and you'll find a comic book for your mom.
Yeah, everybody's mom. Guaranteed, your mom will love at least a few comic books out there.
Yes.
But the
so,
but the comic book I lended to my mom is Roughneck by Jeff Lemire. So Jeff Lemire is awesome. He's without a doubt one of my favorite comic book writers all around.
Also the hardest working. Jesus.
Yeah, if
so productive.
if that's a new name to you, Jeff Lemire is a Canadian comic book artist and cartoonist. He's from Southern Ontario, so I like
Lives
him.
around the corner.
Yeah, he stops in sometimes. He's a really nice guy. But he sort of got his start, his first books that gained attention were based on what I would call the mundane.
Yes.
They weren't about superheroes or horror or action. They were about Ontario families dealing with drama. Essex County Trilogy, which we got right here. Whoops. I believe was sort of his breakout.
Yeah, this was the first time I saw his name.
Yeah, so he's from Essex County, which is close to Guelph, which I'm from Kitchener, so we're like neighbors.
I'm from Essex County, which is why I was gifted this book.
There you go. So we're all, you mean Jeff, we're neighbors practically.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Essex County, his breakout was just stories about real young Canadian people dealing with real Canadian Ontario problems.
It's a very, rural book.
Yes.
There's a lot of, references to hockey. There's a lot of sort of, farting around. There's, an old man who lives next door. No one really knows what he's up to. Nothing nefarious, turns out.
Yeah.
So.
I think my favorite Jeff Lemire book in that realm of his sort of real world stories is probably Roughneck. It's the one that I'm know the best. It's a story of a retired hockey player who's definitely forced to retire early because of head injuries, so he's salty about it. He's not happy about where his life has ended up, and he just lives up in a small northern town in Ontario. And he's just he drinks a lot, he gets in a lot of fights, he's not a happy guy, and his sister turns up out of the blue who he doesn't talk to anymore. She's pregnant, she's in a relationship with an abusive drug dealer, she needs help. There's no spookies, there's no monsters, no one gets possessed, it's just real people dealing with very real problems. And before reading Jeff Lemire stuff, I wasn't very interested in that kind of comic book. More why I like the medium was because I can see big, flashy, amazing, fantastical things happen, rather than just two people talking in a room, because you can just draw whatever you want to happen. But Jeff Lemire definitely made me fall in love with like realistic, grounded comic books and showed me how enthralling they can be and just as immersive as the big, fantastic cosmic stuff that I was gravitated to before. So, like, he did a lot of that kind of stuff. Like I said, Essex County, Roughneck.
What's Frogcatcher? Because I saw that.
Frogcatcher.
I thought there was definitely a monster in Frogcatcher.
So Frogcatchers I like because he did all this early stuff, and then because he got popular, he did like a lot of superhero stuff. He did some big work for DC, he did some big name work for Marvel, and then he's created like his own superhero world. But I like Frogcatchers because it shows that he's still like
interested in the small, like, very personal, very realistic storytelling.
Yeah, because he did all those Family Ontario stories, then he did superhero stuff for years, and then just last year Frogcatchers comes out, and it's just about like a man on his deathbed, like in his own head, dealing with his experiences. That's basically the story.
Oh, jeez.
Like,
yeah.
Sort of going through that, reliving his childhood a little bit, sort of like figuring it out what it is to like sum up a life.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very good. And like most of his interpersonal work, very sad.
Yeah, and even the big stuff, his big superhero titles, I think he brings his ability to write very believable and meaningful relationships to those, so that the big fantastic stories he writes do still feel very grounded in reality.
Yeah.
But like Underwater Welder, I wanted to talk about because I love Underwater Welder, but it gets a little Twilight Zone-y, so it doesn't quite fit our thing today. But I always say to anyone who's maybe interested in reading some comic books but isn't super into big cosmic action stuff, read anything with Jeff Lemire's name on it, really, whether it's like with Image or Dark Horse or some of his earlier stuff like Essex County and Roughneck. It's just really good human storytelling, and it'll make you feel stuff. And he also draws a lot of his own work, and it's a really like unrefined art style, I want to say.
Distinct, like very heavy, like black brushwork sort of style, and like that sort of like gluiness adds to like the gloom of the story.
Yeah, it's very unique. Nobody else's art looks quite like his. But yeah, Jeff Lemire is awesome, and he's like a swell human being, which just makes me want to read his stuff even more.
Double thumbs up.
Jay.
Me?
Yeah.
All right. Are we doing two? Are we going around again? I'm assuming so, right?
Not? Time doesn't mean anything.
Oh man! All right. Well, this is hard
you
because
gotta
like.
refine it.
Okay, there's two distinct ways to go. You can go crime.
Which you love.
I do love crime.
You love yourself a crime.
Caught you red-handed.
I love, anytime that line is used, I'll read that book. And then there's also just like more stone throw away from a human. And I wanted to pick Penny Marshall because of that.
Yeah.
Because that's about a lady named Penny Marshall who gets caught up in making an indie horror film, and that's just...
Penny Nichols.
Penny Nichols, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What's Penny Marshall?
I don't know.
Oh. Well, Penny Nichols.
That'll
is
be
great.
your next part.
Well, Penny Nichols is adorable, and we're gonna wait for Cooper to trip over this wire.
But
And it will
his
be
whole
all
face is in the
good.
frame.
Wait for the
Good
studio
job.
audience to calm down a bit.
Yeah, I know. There was
Studio
a
audience, go
noise.
back to your seat, please.
Yeah.
There we go. Good studio audience.
But
Oh, so cute.
but if I'm not, if this the world of fiction is open up for us in reality, I'm probably gonna go with. Okay.
I could go in.
I'm gonna go with, in that case, Murder Ballads.
This book is particularly special for a few reasons.
Yes, there's a lot of good things about this book. Murder Ballads is about a music producer who hears a band he can't get out of his head, and he really wants them to succeed. And if that sounds like a pretty nice motive, right? That sounds like an inspirational thing. No, he will do anything to try to get this band famous in regards for just himself. It's more of just a reflection on himself than it is the band.
Yeah, he wants the band to do well so that he also is like the best music producer, and he found this like secret band that no one knew about.
Yeah.
So he's like also at it for his own ego.
So it's like our superhero versus vigilante conversation. He's
Yeah.
not at it
No.
because this band is so great and everybody needs to hear it. It's for
No.
himself.
It's and it's kind of like...
And the band doesn't really give a shit.
The band's just happy to be playing at a bar. They don't really. They're happy to do that. But anyway, if I had to relate it to something, Uncut Gems, kind of like the kind of like
he
Adam
definitely
Sandler's.
has that personality.
Yeah, where it's a constant sales pitch.
Yeah.
Nothing he ever says is not disingenuous. There's nothing authentic about this dude.
So it's just unfortunate almost that he found an authentically good band.
Yeah.
Because they're sort of lessened by his presence.
And it's called Murder Ballads, so there's probably some death in it, but actually not much. It's just a slight, it's like a safe cracker amount of true crime. This is something you read in the back of the paper one day. Like the front page is like, waterfall is great, and then you're like, all right, and then you get to the crime section, and there's that section.
Sorry, was your headline of your fictional newspaper
Waterfall
is
is
great?
great, yeah.
I want to read Jason's
Tourism
paper.
real good.
Climate change. Who knows what's going to happen to waterfalls?
So, gotta go see him.
Yeah. But there's also a really cool part about Murder Ballads is it comes with a original soundtrack you can download. There's also the entire soundtrack is also on YouTube right now, and it's by Dan Auerbach, I think that's how you say his last name, and Robert Finley.
My girl, where you going? Out where the wind don't blow. Is it in the pine where the sun don't shine and dribble through the night so low? My girl, don't you lie to me.
I don't know who Robert Finley is. He's a Motown musician who is just fucking awesome from top to bottom. So the fact that he does an entire album for a comic book
Is amazing.
is amazing.
And the album is amazing.
Yes. And the album itself is really good. And when you get to the sections of the book where they play music, you could listen along with it because it is there.
Yeah. Yeah, you can listen to those songs.
Sorry to whip up my phone on the cast, but I want to add that right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is why I've been shaking this at people. I think Dylan bought a copy because I kept being like, it has music in it, and it's also a comic, and the art is great, and the storytelling's good, and you can listen along with the album. And he was like, what?
And there's
this exists? And I'm like, yes.
And there's a dry, like, David Mamet back and forth dialogue to it. It's like, it has a
Yeah.
crackly energy to it. It's really good. I can't really, as far as, like, true crime stuff goes, even not even that true crime.
It's got a noir bend.
It's got a noir bend in it. It's really, really good. It's got a nice soul, like Louisiana swamp background and stuff. It's the place to be.
Why
nice
everyone isn't buying this book is a mystery to me.
Yeah, and I like this genre. And I'm gonna do a quick Dead Inside by Arcudi. Yeah, and same thing with him. Dead Inside's about. Turns out, I didn't know this, just like how there's a whole crime division for the male, there's a whole crime division for crimes that happen specifically in prisons.
Yeah.
And there's a murder in prison, and it stars a lady, I forgot her name, but she's an interesting character with a rich backstory and stuff going on. And there's a murder in a prison, and it seems cut and dry, but it's not. And she digs deeper and deeper until she finds out about a whole thing. It's not too crazy of a conspiracy.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not like
a small conspiracy in the prison
Yeah.
about, like, sort of like, you know, drug trade and things like this.
Yeah.
Inside the prison. I don't want to give too much away.
Yeah, it's great.
They think a prisoner committed suicide, but that's not really what happened.
And it's a slow burn.
Yeah.
There's not a fight scene in it.
No, and she's like every good male noir detective, but convincingly female.
Yes.
And, like, I really appreciate that about it, because sometimes it's just, like, tropey, and she just feels like a whole person.
It just feels lived in. Like she's done this 1,000 times, and she's kind of like, she's good at it, but she's also over it at the same time. So she's like, I kind of want to just be a gardener or like a mailman. I already said mailman. I was going to be on a gardener or a milkman.
Mailman is your go-to.
Mailman, I got okay.
It's a good government job.
It's a good government job.
Get outside every day.
Yep.
No, I got stuck in an Uber I did an Uber share once, and one of them was a mailman, and I was just like, can you tell me about your day? Is it just listening to the podcast and walking around and putting mail in slots? He's like, that's exactly what it is. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing.
Government career, pension.
Yeah, and he's like, I get all these benefits and a career, and I like, and like, and all it really matters is like, if I finish my route, I'm done. If I can finish my route in like 3 hours, I'm done for 3 hours. I'm like, wow, is it great? And he's like, I like it. But he wasn't like in love with it too, which I also like. He was just kind of like, yeah, whatever.
It's a thing I do.
Great, obviously very stable career path that I'm sure gives someone a lot of time and resources to follow their passions. I don't know how many people are passionate about the art of mail delivery. Don't want to knock it.
Yeah, but if you don't have it's perfectly fine to not have a passion in life. Like, I have no aspirations to write a novel or be an artist or anything. I don't want to build a house. I just kind of want to enjoy life at the speed I want to enjoy it, and then that's it.
that's I feel like a life lesson I started to learn when I was out west working with labor diggers and stuff. Is my whole life had been very much like, find your passion and make that your job. And all these other people are like, nah, I got a good job that pays the bill, and then I do what I want in my spare time. And I'm like, oh, that is an equally valid and fulfilling life path.
Yeah.
Hadn't thought of that.
I love that about, so I think we all listen to the Weekly Planet.
I've watched through YouTube. I haven't broken the podcast label
It's the
yet,
same.
But, yeah.
They're the same. I listen to the podcast more because they're long, and if I'm delivering, then it sort of fills my mind with this banter that I crave.
Yeah. Their banter is delightful.
So good. But Mason...
it's a trolley driver?
Yes.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And then he does that with his friend. But, like, he just shows up to it. He doesn't, like, arrange the editing. He doesn't do additional podcasts. Like,
he'll watch a movie,
Mason shows up.
Yeah.
And Mason is a trolley driver. And Mason likes to hang out with his friend who wants to have the Weekly Planet podcast.
Yeah.
And also does other podcasts with his wife and all this stuff. So, like, that guy is the guy. And then there's Mason.
So is Mason the one with the big beard?
Yes.
So Mason, the big beard, that's great.
I know,
Picturing him in a little train conductor hat.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is the perfect train. You get on a train and then here's your conductor.
Adorable.
Sold. He did not look like how I imagined. Whenever you listen to a podcast with a band, you kind of like...
Oh, yeah.
You kind of render what they look like in your mind, and then you see them and you're like, well, I was way off.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like I saw their photos so early on that it didn't...
No, it did.
Wait, you're not a goat, like your profile photo?
Yeah, I thought you were a goat or some kind of ungulate. Same thing happened with the How Stuff Works podcast. I saw a picture of them, and I projected their voices in reverse.
Oh.
And then I met them because I went to a podcast live, and Simon was like, "Hey, did you meet these guys? It's Chuck and the other guy." And I went, "Oh, how's it going?" And then the wrong voice came out of the wrong person, and it drove me nuts. I was like, "What's happening?" Anyway, real life comics, Chris. You should go.
Yeah, what comics do you like, Chris?
We got derailed by podcasts, which is kind of like real life comics.
Yeah.
You know.
It's a podcast too. I mean,
And we're also a podcast. We love other podcasts. It's all good. So I sometimes like real life stuff. Doing this episode made me realize how many times I like a thing because all of a sudden a ghost shows up. Like, it's very grounded, and then all of a sudden, oh, it was a demon the whole time. Like, that's kind of my bread and butter. So I was like, oh, no, one where the ending isn't that, it was a ghost.
You must love Mark Millar titles then.
But like Abbott, that like investigative like
Detroit
thing where she's trying to figure it out, turns it out it's a demon, stuff like that. Or like Kill Strike, where it's like a guy who's a nerd and he goes home and like his wife's about to have a baby, and then he opens a comic and the guy comes out. So when there's like one wacky thing, that's like the best for me. So I have to quell my one wacky thing. So I really like stories like Cannonball. So that came out, and it's just about two girls who are roommates. They go to an art school, and then one of them has some success with her book. And it's just about like their relationship and sort of like being fraught because she doesn't feel like she's deserving of success, and like her other friend is like, "You're awesome, but you're being a dick right now." And like the illustration style is very colorful, so like it brings life to sort of like this very mundane sort of character relationship. So this book came out, and I really enjoyed it because it felt real, but also more playful than something like that would normally be if it was like a movie, let's say, because it would be like sort of like Ghost World without the relationship stuff, and it would be kind of like tense, but because you've got this like colorful caricature artwork, it kind of makes it like a little bit more palatable when it's interpersonally stressful, which I find very stressful. And then I also liked books like Last Contract or Slots, which it turns out my favorite non-fantastical stuff is about older men who are over the hill trying to do the thing.
Yep.
You can't get enough Liam Neeson stuff.
Liam Neeson, that Ron Perlman movie that no one really watched
Asher.
or liked, Asher, where he was like a hitman and now he's kind of like too old to be a hitman, but he's gonna still try.
Have you checked out that show where he's a judge turned vigilante?
We
yet?
gotta watch that, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
so like
I'm-
stuff like that, where it's like older dude, just at the end.
No wonder you like Millennium so much.
I do. I love it. He's so old and he's so like, I just want to raise kids and have a farm. And then they're like, no, there's been a murder. And he's like,
I want there to be one more Clint Eastwood movie where he's like a retired John Wick or something like that.
yeah.
Oh, did you watch The Mule?
No, actually, I
The
haven't.
Mule's actually good. Everyone makes fun of it because it's
Oh.
like, who gives a fuck about this Republican now? I'm like, oh, but it's hilarious.
Unfortunately, I give a fuck about that Republic.
Yeah, I know,
Just
but-
because my dad raised me on Clint Eastwood action, and I could
Yeah.
watch him be grumpy
No, the-
for 12 hours, and it would entertain me.
The Mule's great. It's him being a drug mule, but he's a 90-year-old man, so he keeps getting pulled over, and he says sassy shit, and all the cops are like, you old 90-year-old man, you don't know
And they
what's
just
going
let
on.
him go.
And he just has blocks of heroin in his trunk.
That's great.
Yeah, I just want one more. Like, I want to see The Last Contract, the movie with Clint Eastwood. That-
Yeah. And in there, he has a dog, and they're like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, fine, I'm just gonna figure out who did this.
Oh,
Studio audience.
Phew.
I know. It's very exciting.
this
to
is
think
not
about.
the time for audience participation, Coop. Okay, you need-
To think about over the hill, man. He just had to skitter up.
Jake.
You're not quite over the hill.
No, you were talking about him having a dog. And he's like,
Jake.
"Oh, that's me.
It's
Yeah.
me. I'm the dog. I'm the dog in Last Contract. And then Slots, where he's like an older boxer who's seen his day, and he comes back to sort of title fight his way into like re-winning a casino owned by a woman who's very much like the counterpart of that. Like she's owned it for a really long time, and like it's sort of on the downturn.
Well,
of
he's
being the most popular
he's swimming
place.
he's swimming in debt,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And his son is like
Is a
rising the
prize
ranks
fighter.
of being a
Yeah.
prize fighter, so he goes back there to initially exploit him to get out of
But
debt.
then to
Yeah.
save
Yeah.
his friend's casino, and it like becomes another thing where like you have these timelines of like people on the rise and like people in the twilight of their career kind of like helping each other.
If Mickey Rourke had a second comeback, a third comeback, if
A
you will,
third comeback.
Slots is the movie for him.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And I like Mickey Rourke even though he looks like a cartoon.
I think people just assume he's got like a rap sheet of like
No.
nefarious stuff. Like he's like, wait, Mickey Rourke didn't get me too. I'm like, no, he seems fine. He's just weird.
I just kind of assumed his death in The Wrestler was like canon, that he was just gone now.
No, he played like a weird projectionist in a horror anthology thing that we
Oh
saw last year.
yeah, that was weird. He was good in it.
But he has been reconstructed in such a way that makes him not look like anyone else.
I have faith in him that he'll do a weird bounce back.
Yeah.
The live-action Dark Knight Returns. He's perfect for Frank Miller's wrinkly old Batman with the weird jaw and the
Yeah.
that one pose. Where he's
Yeah, he's already doing that,
Yeah.
so he's ready.
Yeah.
He'll leave and come back. He does that. He comes in waves.
The thing I will say about comics of this genre, just as like kind of like a wrap up, is that I prefer them in trade or graphic novel format.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I agree. There's some when we all love reading new comics and
Yeah,
new single issue comes out every
issues,
week.
yeah.
For sure. But reading like real life dramas in that format is definitely different.
Because it's like almost like a longer arc, like you don't have the opportunity for like mini cliffhangers.
Yeah.
Like Saga is like notorious for doing the like 25 pages and then
Yeah.
like some sort of punchy ending.
Mhm.
You don't really have that, so you kind of end where you began in a lot of ways, so it's harder to read it in little snippets like that. So
Yeah.
I do kind of lose it because you're relying mostly on character moments and like interpersonal dialogue to get to the next like story point.
Yeah.
It's hard to space that out like a month at a time.
Yeah.
So like these works are almost better just in volume.
I couldn't read POS in
I'm just thinking now of how the traditional like selling point, how comic books are known. You know, it's superheroes, and they got this on the cover, and oh my god, this week Superman's gonna fight Doomsday. Like, oh my god, I gotta get this.
Yeah.
Versus like, imagine alternate reality where real life comic book stories are much more popular in the weekly format. Like, oh my god, Jimmy's gonna divorce Pam in this issue. Look at that front cover. Oh man.
He gets a phone call from his boss.
You know what's a weird take on that is
Burp, 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 burp.
seamless. Good point we just said there, Harrison. Garth Ennis is horrendous at like the last page of an issue. Cliffhanger. He's really, really bad at it, and it's because he thinks of like in arcs, right? His mind like projects and like his storytelling is like 6-page issues. Because I used to read Punisher Max issue by issue, and I'm like, I have no idea what's going on.
Nonsensical.
Nor do I care. And then when I started reading it in trades, I'm like, this is like some of the best stuff I've ever read. It's because it's one continuous story.
Yeah.
And so when he has to end on those like nail biters, they're like, he doesn't really do it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I read slots and single issues, and I had a heck of a time with some of the things because you're given just visual cues and like locational stuff, and when you're reading it as one fluid sort of arc, it all makes sense and you can see those there. But when there's a month gap in between, I don't remember what poster was where.
I've said that before about even Jeff Lemire. I've said that before. Even
Ed Brubaker. That's that problem
Gideon
too.
Falls is the title I think of. Like amazing, like thriller, mystery, supernatural series. Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino. But like I can't read it issue by issue. I have to read it volume by volume because it's like a mystery. So there are little details dropped here or there that clue you into what's happening, and because it's like it's a slow burn. And don't mean that in a bad way, just as in that's the pacing of it way. So like it's for me, just as a reader with a short attention span, when I try to read a story like that in monthly issues, a month later the details of last month's issue are gone. They're out of there.
Yeah.
So there are definitely kinds of comics, whether they're rooted in reality or rooted in fiction, that read amazingly in single issues and some that read better in collections.
Yeah.
And I think we all have our own little reasons as to why that might be for us.
Yeah.
Doesn't make a story worse or better if it can be enjoyed in either format. I just think they're paced differently, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Real life doesn't have insane game-changing revelations.
Yeah, and that's
every day. Yeah.
That's why I don't read much nonfiction.
There isn't a shootout in our front yard every day.
But here are some picks.
Well, yes, enjoy.
Contact your local comic book store and see if they've got any of these comics available for you.
Ed Brubaker is good at that. Fade Out is nice. Criminal.
Good stuff.
There you go. Rolling for real this time.
I'm gonna stop it. I'm gonna start it.
I'm gonna rack focus on Cooper. I'm recording this though.
Jay, did you get a haircut?
I got all of them cut.